Good morning and welcome to another edition of Inspiring Life Journeys, where we have conversations with everyday people about their life journey, with their ups and downs, their just their life of what's been happening and what has shaped them to where they are today. Before we get started, I'm just going to go ahead with a quick intro, and then we can get started. We have a really exciting guest today, and I can't wait to introduce him to you. Today our guest is the amazing James Barbour. Hi, James. Welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know James is an award-winning Broadway star. He's been the international concert artist. For years, he starred as a Phantom in the Broadway's longest-running smash show musical, and all of you are very familiar with it, The Phantom of the Opera. It's one of my favorite shows, and I'm sure many of you have seen that, but not have really met James. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet him here. He won the LA Ovation Best Actor Award for his portrayal in Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, and was nominated for the Drama Desk Drama League in the Critics Award for Best Actor in the Musical for his portrayal of the Sidney Carton in Broadway's musical of The Tale of Two Cities. What James is doing right now, he's a motivational speaker and a seminar host. He uses his experience in the entertainment world to teach others how to reach their goals in business and in life. And James, that's how I got to meet you and get into your world. And really, you've helped us and so many others in this very aspect of where you are right now.
Oh, thanks. It's a lot of fun. It's great to spend time and know you and meet you and learn about all the things you do. And it's just a great community.
Yeah, thank you, James. What I'd like to really talk about is your life journey. I know life is a journey, just like travel. We journey through life in various stages, and they typically mold you to where you are. So I'd like to just touch a little bit about from the time you were young, from the time you were growing up till the time you are now, in your various phases. What has helped you, and what can you share with our viewers that has really helped you, which will help some of our viewers in their journey through life?
Yeah, well, it's a long journey, right?
Yeah.
Many years. You know, I think my life is not dissimilar to everyone's lives. You know, we start out and we have these dreams and aspirations, and we have life activities that surround us, and we're confronted with obstacles and opportunities, and how we face them, how we deal with them. That sort of molds who we are. So for me, I was always a dreamer. I was always a creator. I always wanted to learn as many things as I can about as many different things as I possibly could. And that really is what pushed me onward, is the curiosity to learn and understand at a very early age. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how much you want to go into it, but that curiosity also was met with a lot of challenges and obstacles, because I think a lot of creative people, and dare I say, I think everyone's creative. Every single person is creative. And sometimes we just shove that creativity down because of obstacles we face. But I was faced with challenges, people, you know, ridiculing me, making fun of me, doubting my journey. But the key for me was always staying true to what my goals and my dreams were, and finding the people around me who inspired me to keep pushing forward. So those are the things that motivated me, including, you know, my parents. You know, they were very supportive in helping me just keep the dreams afloat that I had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great thought, where you just got to follow up, and having those circle of people in your life who can encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what life was, and maybe in your early years and probably through school.
Yeah. So I grew up in southern New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia. And I went to, it was interesting. I went to private school in an area that wasn't where I lived. It was probably 25-minute drive from where I was. Yet, ironically, my mother taught in the public school system in my hometown. And there was an elementary school within walking distance to my home. Literally, I had about an acre of woods in my backyard. And if I went straight through my backyard through those woods, I would land in the public school. Yet I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood because all of
Mm.
the kids in my neighborhood went to the school behind me and I went to a different school. So I used to come home
Mhm.
and, my friends would be 25, 30 minutes away. But I would come home and go, okay, well, now what do? I do my homework, and I would go out into the woods in my backyard and I would create these cool worlds and, use my imagination to live in the environment that I'd always dreamed of. Like, did I want to go to space? Did I want to create a world of adventure? And that's where my creativity really, I think for me, sparked. And then I eventually left the private school system and went to public school and went to the school directly behind my house. And in fourth grade, I walk in and they're like, "Did you just move here?" I'm like, "Nope, nope, I've been here my whole life." So created a whole
Mm.
bunch of new friends. The thing for me that was very, it was challenging, but it's something that I didn't think of because it's just what we were. My father, who was an incredible man, um, he did not finish high school. He got a GED. My father was born in 1925. And my mother, ironically enough, had a double master's degree, diametrically opposed in terms of their educational journeys. But my
Mhm.
father became very successful. But one of the things that happened during that time when he was working was it was a very different time. So he started training a young man, and his boss later became the head of the company. Um, Actually, a guy he was working with, and the boss was like, "Hey, listen, you need to train this guy in your job." And my father was like, "Oh, wow, I guess I'm training him to take over my position so that I can move up to the next position." And he found out quickly that he was training the man to be his own boss. And the thing was, is that this guy had a college degree and my father did not. And even though
Mm.
my father was very, very, very good at what he did, excellent at what he did, he kind of got bypassed. And during that time, I think that's when he started drinking. And my father became an alcoholic, unfortunately. So growing up as a child in that environment, and I think like a lot of people have had that experience, it was one of those life defining experiences because it did not change from the time I was very young until, probably 3 years before my father passed away. He eventually stopped drinking when he got very ill, but that was later on in life. So that became a real catalyst for me in terms of my childhood because it was to me about healing. How can I help? And so, Shantha, you know me, I mean, pretty well now. I mean, we've become friends. My whole purpose in life is how do I help? How do I help? How can I help people mostly overcome adversity and push through obstacles that may seem insurmountable, but we need to do something to move forward. So as a young kid, I was faced with those challenges in my family. How do I help this family? How do I survive here? And
Mm.
ironically, my family stayed together. My parents didn't divorce; they stayed together. It was like a constant um, battle at the same time as this weird sense of like companionship and camaraderie because we knew that this is all we had. We had to figure it out ourselves. So that was a real defining moment for me as I went forward in my life. So that was a huge, huge moment in learning.
That's great. Yeah, it's really you're thrown into circumstances, but how can you overcome that, and what can you do to it's such a great thought that you'll stay together, but you'll work through it
Yeah,
and really overcame that. So, and I love the creativity that you had right from your growing up, like
yeah,
going into the woods and really imagining and making your own story and creating it. So from that, did that kind of give you a thought to go into Broadway? How did the Broadway come into your life there?
By happenstance. So I wanted to do all these different things. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to be an oceanographer. I had actually thought about, I had a very, very, very strong attachment to discovery and space. I thought about going to the space program. I thought about going to the military, primarily because I wanted to explore. I always had this thing about discovery. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom used to use this phrase, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. I was like, But if you look on my social media, it says fan of the polymath. And a polymath is someone who has a wide variety of interests and does them. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. These are my guys, even growing up as a very young person. And I thought, well, why can't you learn? Why can't you discover? Why can't you be this Renaissance sort of being? Why not? In the old days, we had to be. You had to do everything. I was listening to an interview a while ago, like 100 years ago, maybe a little longer. I mean, life was very different 100 years ago than it is now. And even going a little before that, we weren't going to grocery stores and picking out our clothes and, picking up our food. It was a very different lifestyle. So progress is progress. But as I started doing these discoveries and I started to try to find what my purpose was in life in terms of where I wanted to go, I always knew that I wanted to discover, to learn. And I had this weird ability to kind of create different characters. And I sort of fell into it in high school. I played sports, but I didn't really fit in. Why didn't I fit in? Because I had gone to private school for so long and these cliques were already established. And so I sort of fell in with what used to be called the geeks. I played sports, but I hung out with the kids that were just like creative. So even though I played sports, it didn't really fit for me. And then I walked onto the stage at a theater, and my sister had always performed. She had taken dance classes, she took singing lessons, and she performed. So by osmosis, I would go to her lessons with my mother. My mother would drag me to all of these lessons, and I would sit there and I would just become ingrained with that. And then I walked on a stage one time and I was like, whoa, this is cool. It's really quiet. It's peaceful. And so the real thing that happened was, as I was trying to escape the situation in my family, meaning, my father's alcoholism, and there was volatility. I mean, you cannot be in a family environment with someone who's an alcoholic and say, everything's great. So there was this sort of instability. I never knew on a weekend if I invited friends over to my house, if my father would be drunk or not. So I would use the creativity to sort of escape and have these moments of like, this is what a perfect world would be, or this is where my life would be. But I realized that if I became an actor, I could become an astronaut. I could become an archaeologist. I could become, whatever I wanted to be, learn about that for a short amount of time, escape into these really cool worlds, and then go on and become something else and something else and something else and something else. So that's really how it happened. It was an effort to create some other places where I was like, well, this is what is possible. It allowed me to fulfill my goals of doing all these different things, that Renaissance sort of idea. And then moreover, I was challenged when I got into college by our acting teacher. And he said to us one day, we were doing Twelfth Night, the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night. And he looked at us as a collective and he said, what audacity do you have to stand on the stage in front of 1,600 people a night and ask them to pay money to watch you perform? And he was challenging us, rather than being narcissistic and saying, it's all about me, the performer, and applaud for me when I bow. He was saying, why are you doing this? And I realized at that moment that there was a responsibility that I had to be on the stage to affect a positive change. And that's where it came from me, that whole purpose of helping, of combining all those things when I was younger, to say, okay, now I have this opportunity. How can I use this to inspire, to lift up? So when people are coming to the theater or coming to see a film or coming to hear a concert or something like that, they would be taken out of the doldrums of their everyday life, taken out of the problems of their everyday life, and know that there is the possibility of something else, something better, some hope. And that became my purpose. And that's how I fell into performance. Long story.
No, that's great. I think the lessons that you've learned along the way was really going to help some people who are really looking for a way of expanding their creativity and getting into, creating their life story as it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. How did you land? If you'd like to share, I know you've got some really great stories about Broadway, and
Yeah.
could you share a little bit about, since most people are very familiar with Phantom and with Les Miserables, those are a couple of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you landed in that role and what was your thoughts on as you started and worked through those years you were in that?
Yeah. So look, this is a very challenging profession. I wrote a book during the pandemic called The Artist's Survival Guide. Went to #1 on Amazon. It has nothing to do with performance. This is all to do to surviving as an artist. And dare I say, surviving as anyone in any business, because the same tools apply, because an artist is an entrepreneur. And it's a very, very, very challenging profession. The statistics that are in the book, I think it's a 2019 statistic, that 79% of all members of Actors Equity, which is the union that governs professional stage actors in the United States, it's the top of the top. 79% make $50,000 a year or less before taxes. So that's about $35,000. 69% of all professional actors make $15,000 a year or less before taxes. $15,000 is below poverty level, and that's before taxes. So it's not for the faint of heart. I remember very early on there was an audition. It was called an open call, which means anybody can come to this. And the doors open at 9 a.m. and I was standing in line at about 28 degrees in New York City at 7 a.m. outside this audition space, and there were already 75 people in line in front of me. By the time the doors opened at 9 o'clock, there were about 250 people. We all piled in, signed up. The auditions weren't until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they started typecasting, which means it was for men. 20 men went in. They look at you and they go, you, stay. Everybody else, thank you very much. So some of these guys were standing in line since 6:45 a.m. And by the time they got in, all they did was say, thank you. They didn't do anything. They didn't speak. They didn't sing. They didn't say a word, nothing. Just based on type, right? What you look like. So for me, the challenge was, how do I push through? How do I overcome this challenge? How do I stay true to my dreams? So that's the thing that pushed me forward. So I eventually got to a point where I used marketing. I used, just staying in contact with people. I had to have a certain level of skill, just like if you want to be in the NBA, you got to have a certain level of skill. You have to play in that game. So you need to hone your skills. Fast forward a number of years, I eventually got my first starring role on Broadway, which was Billy Bigelow in Carousel. And then that's where I met my wife. She was in the show as well. Then I played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. Then did it with Toni Braxton on Broadway. Awesome. Toni Braxton's amazing. And then just started rolling. And at a certain point, I'll tell the story of Phantom, because everybody knows Phantom. No matter where you go in the world, everybody knows Phantom. I had auditioned in 1992. I had auditioned for Raoul, which is the young male lead in the show. And I hadn't seen the show. I didn't know what it was about. And I flew in. I was on tour with another show. I flew in to see the show. I was like, okay. Audition the next day, didn't get the job. Actually messed up the audition. And then as I said, I did Beauty and the Beast, and there's a lot of makeup in Beauty and the Beast, a lot, right? It was like 45 minutes of makeup, 25 pounds of yak hair. I mean, it was crazy. And I did that show on and off for 5 years. And so when Phantom came around, people kept saying to me over these, you need to play the Phantom. I'm like, I don't know. It's a lot of makeup. I'm kind of done with the makeup. It's a very high role. It's a high tenor role. I was like, I don't know. And I just kept poo-pooing it and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I had gotten to a point where I was creating new roles in shows, whereas Phantom had been running for, when it closed a couple months ago, it was 35 years on Broadway, right? Had been running for 10 years, 20 years. It was like, I wanted to do new stuff. So fast forward again, I got a phone call. I had done Les Miserables, and I got the Ovation Award for that show. And that show is also owned and produced by Cameron McIntosh, who is the same man who owns and produces or co-owns Phantom of the Opera. Amazing guy, huge visionary in the theater. And I then, after I did Les Mis, did a show called The Witches of Eastwick, which was based upon the Jack Nicholson film of the same name. Very funny, hilarious. And up comes to this theater the casting director from New York, who I've known for years, who happens to cast Phantom and all these things. Witches of Eastwick was also owned by Cameron Mackintosh, right? Very small world. And she brought with her the sort of head of Cameron's company in New York, and very different role, because I normally play these dark, brooding, sort of dark characters that, you know, overcome adversity and find love and get redemption. Well, Daryl Van Horn in Witches of Eastwick is not that. He's the devil, and it's very funny. And so the casting director came backstage and she goes, "Wait a minute, where did this funny James come from?" Because my whole career I've been doing these classical characters. And I said, her name's Tara Rubin, and I said, "Tara, this is me. The other guy's like put on, right? I'm the dorky, goofy guy." So within 4 days of that, I had been told that Cameron had been sent a recording of The Witches of Eastwick. Within 4 days of returning back to Los Angeles, I got a phone call saying they want you to record yourself doing the Phantom music, because they want to fly you into New York. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it. And I kept, no, they want you to do it. And finally, a friend of mine said, "Listen, let's just record you." So we did. And I recorded myself singing Music of the Night and one of the other tunes, sent it off to New York. 2 days later, they're like, "Okay, we're flying to New York." I'm like, okay. So they flew me to New York. I went to the Majestic Theater where Phantom is. And my buddy Norm Lewis, my predecessor, is the first African-American to ever play the role on Broadway. Amazing performer, great guy. We came up together. I ended up sitting in his dressing room. He wasn't there because it was during the auditions. And I went out on the stage. There was Cameron Mackintosh. There was Hal Prince, the original director. Everybody and their brother, the musical supervisor. Andrew Lloyd Webber was in London. He was not there. And I started to sing Music of the Night, and I forgot the words in the middle of the audition. And David Lai, one of the musical directors, gave me the line, and I kept singing. And I was like, okay, I'm done. It's over. And within 2 days, I had the job. So that's really what happened. And the irony is that the intention that you put out into the world and the commitment that you have toward a goal overrides any of the mechanics that you're working on. If you're in business, whether it's a funnel, it's not working, like I don't have the right word, I don't have this. What is your intention? What is your goal? What is the passion behind it? They knew my reputation as a performer. They also knew the intention that I was bringing to the role, so that even though I inverted a word, which got me off when I sang Music of the Night, they had a full understanding of what I was doing. And even those little hiccups in your life are minor when you have the intention to focus. So that's how I ended up doing Phantom. It was supposed to be a 1-year contract. It turned into almost 3 years. It was an incredible journey. As you can see, that's the poster right there that was hanging. So that's the story of Phantom of the Opera.
And you did a lot of shows, and it's really amazing as to how you have to be there, present, day in and day out, every evening.
Yeah,
and it is a commitment.
It is. Look, people may not understand this. To do a Broadway show specifically, it's 8 shows a week, 6 days a week, 1 day off a week, 1 week off every 6 months, every single day. So the Phantom schedule was Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday matinee, Thursday night show, Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday night show. We had Sundays off. It was exhausting. And behind the stage, I counted, it's about 1,100 to 1,200 steps and stairs, ladders and steps that you never see on stage that I climbed every single show. So it's exhausting. It's, plus the emotional outlay of that. And, when you think about performers that do that, my wife was a professional dancer. She danced at American Ballet Theater and San Francisco Ballet, and then went to do Broadway she did 5 Broadway shows. They're like elite athletes, and it's a daunting challenge, but it's also amazingly rewarding.
Yeah, that's great. What are some of the shows that you've done, lesser known shows that you've done, which have which people may not have known about that you're in it, but it's one of the,
Well, there's a ton. I mean, like I've done thousands and thousands. I've been on stage in front of over 200 million people live in my career,
wow.
um,
Uh-huh.
which, I've started 9 Broadway shows, and there are people who have done more. You can imagine how many people they've been in front of. But Broadway-wise, there's a great show called Yearning, and it's a society where you can no longer pee for free. It was hilarious. Directed by a guy named John Rando, who is directing the musical version of Back to the Future, which is coming to Broadway and smash success in London. That's a little known show for the layperson on Broadway. There are tons of shows that I've done, tons of readings that I've done. Broadway wise, A Tale of Two Cities, based on the Charles Dickens novel, incredible story of redemption. You talk about, look, the finances of Broadway are a totally different topic. This was like a $16 million production that ran 6 weeks and closed. It was a really tough year. 9 Broadway shows closed in one day that same year. It was it was 2008, 2009. It was the economic downturn in the US at the time. So many shows, but I don't look at it. I look at it for what is the purpose of the show and what's it's doing. Tale of Two Cities is one of those, teaching redemption and overcoming adversity. So that to me, I think, is 2 of the ones, You're in Town and Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, great. Great. James, you evolved from that life to now what you're doing is you're really a motivational speaker. You have some amazing programs that you're working on and helping people bring their creativity and become a great speaker.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to start that and just so that people get a better understanding of what you are right now and who you are as a person right now?
Yeah, I'm the same guy. Life is about growth, right? And I've always been this guy. I still travel around the world and do concerts. I'm going to do a concert this weekend. So that hasn't stopped. I've just taken it to the next level. And here's the thing that I want to share with you guys. Being the captain of your own ship is vitally important. As an actor, I used to look at people who created their own opportunity. Billy Bob Thornton, Kenneth Branagh, Vin Diesel. They took their careers and they made them happen, right? Usually an actor is, hi, can I get this job? I'll audition. Please hire me. No, we don't want you. You're not in control of your own destiny that way. Very early on, I looked at my business as an entrepreneurial business again, like I am a product, right? There's a hard drive. This is a hard drive. I'm selling this hard drive, but I am me. What is my product? It's me. You, Shantha, with your travel business, you are the brand of your product. There are other products underneath of you, the sub-products of, the hotels and this and the great vacations and the good service that you're providing. But you are the face of your product. You are the face of your brand. I always knew that. So I was doing Phantom, and Grant Cardone, who's an acquaintance of mine, a buddy of mine, came to see the show with Elena. And, we were talking, and he gave me the millionaire booklet he made. He's like, dude, I'm like, give me the booklet. He goes, give me the booklet. And I was reading it one day. I was getting makeup on, and it really deconstructs how to make $1 million, right? It's very actually simple math, right? If you do X number of product at this price point over this amount of time, you'll make $1 million. It's just reversing the engineering. And so at one point he started to launch the 10X Growth Con. I'm like, bro, let me come and sing. He's like, what? You'll come and sing? I'm like, yeah, I'll come sing. So I went down to the first 10X Growth Con, and I spoke and I sang on the stage, and that kind of opened my eyes to the world. I'd started consulting while I was doing Phantom with a very powerful marketer named Ted McGrath. He wrote a one-man show on his life story, which we used as a marketing tool. I connected him with a few people because I was still doing Phantom and I couldn't really be with him physically. So after Phantom finished, I then did another 10X Growth Con and another 10X Growth Con. And then I got connected via Tim Ballard, who runs Operation Underground Railroad. I helped him raise some money and do some things for a great documentary, which is on Amazon called Operation Saint. That documentary was airing at the ClickFunnels event because Russell Brunson had also, he was a big portion of making that documentary happen. You can still see it on Amazon Prime right now. Powerful, powerful story. So Tim invited me to go to ClickFunnels to watch the premiere of this documentary. And then Russell found out what I did. He found out that, I used funnels. I used ClickFunnels at the time. And and then I ran into Russell and Dave Woodward, who just passed away. Dave was the CEO of ClickFunnels, amazing guy, at one of the growth cons. And he's like, James. I'm like, Dave. And he goes, Russell, James, Phantom. Oh my God. Next thing you know, I'm singing at the ClickFunnels stage and I'm motivating a ClickFunnels stage. And I didn't sell anything. I didn't have a product. It's just me, right? I am my product. But what happened was when I left the stage, people would rush me. Oh my gosh, what do you do? How do you do this? I need help. I'm like, well, look, I help people communicate. I've been on stage in front of over 200 million people live. I know how to stand. I know how to talk. I know how to structure a story. So one by one, people would just say, can you help me? Can you help me? And I was like, I've done it in my world, in my profession, but I've never done it with an executive or this. I'm like, well, it's the same thing. So that's basically how it happened. And I launched a few brands. One is called Star Power, how to become the star in your field. And I tell this story, and this is really important for me. I was watching a video, and this young lady, really great young lady, was on there. And she's like, hey, do you want to know what it's like to be a Grammy Award-winning star? Do you want to know how to break in to be a Grammy Award-winning singer? Well, I can show you through my new program. And the reason I know is because I was backstage and I watched how they did it. I went, yeah, but you didn't do it. You didn't do it. And there's worth to her program. But I was seeing, I was like, well, wouldn't you want to learn from somebody who actually got the Grammy or got the Grammy nomination? I was like, okay, well, I'm an award-winning Broadway star, whatever that means, right? I think awards are kind of silly, but because it really says, oh, you're better than this person, but it's arbitrary. It's not like a tennis match where like Serena Williams is going to beat, her opponent, right? Whoever wins more points is going to win. That's definitive. Art is arbitrary, right? So I think it's kind of silly. So I launched the brand Star Power, and I started helping people communicate. And and then I met Craig Doswell through Ken Walls, and had a great time there. And Craig and I developed a program to help people expand and create their story and their message. It's called the Rockstar Power Speaker Program. And we did that. And now we have a big retreat where we're helping people. So that's really, it's coming full circle, right? Remember, I talked about helping and overcoming adversity and identifying purpose. And now I'm really doing it on a big level. So that's how that happened. And I'm still doing it today.
Yeah. And I love, James, I've been part of your program. I love the way that you bring out the creativity in people. And you've said this so many times to everyone, when even I thought, I don't have a story, who's going to be interested in my story? But you have the power to sort of bring out the creativity in you and get you thinking into it. And so that's one of the greatest talents that I think you have in being able to help people do that.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. I mean, you saw it when we went through that program. People were saying, even yourself, like, I don't have a story. When I heard your story, I was like, what? Of course you have a story. But the thing is, it's mundane for us, right? We think, oh, this is just my life. I never used to talk about my father being an alcoholic because it was embarrassing. It was the family. Well, my father passed away. And I believe that this is a shell. This is just a momentary shell in this journey of this life cycle. And so, he was here for that. He taught me lessons. I loved him dearly. I still do wherever he is. But I never talked to him. But then I realized that story can help people. It is who I am. It helped define me for good or bad, and I had to live through it. But it was my thing that I kind of set back there. And I have other stories as well. But when you look and you go, oh, well, I do have something that I can share. Maybe this could be it. You never know how many people are going to be impacted by that one story you tell about your journey, Shantha. Your journey of coming here and that persistence of wanting to be in the United States and be here and create a business, and the success that does. That inspires so many people to make a change in their life. And if they're at a point where they're like, I'm going to give up, I'm just going to stay where I am. And then they hear your story. They go, wait a minute, maybe I can. And I talk in my book about the ember, that fire that was burning inside of you. And at some point in your life, coals were put on it, sand was put on it, and it's dampened out for whatever reason, whether it's somebody in your family or somebody in your life or an experience you went through or something that happened to you, right? But it's still in there. And all you have to do is just put some air on it, just blow lightly on that, and those fires will glow. And then eventually they'll burst into flames and they will ignite your passion and your dream again. And you never know what your story is going to inspire in others. So that's You're absolutely right, and I appreciate your kind words to me, and I thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, James. You've given our listeners so many things to think about right from the time that you were growing up, about having the intention, the commitment, and just, you talked about when the embers kind of dampen it, just be persistent and follow their dreams. As we kind of wrap up, I just want to just have you share some of how people can reach you and reach out to you and contact you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, sure. I mean, the easiest way, if you want to pop on my newsletter, it's totally free. The cool thing about the newsletter is it also, because I ride both worlds, I ride the entertainment world and I ride the entrepreneurial world. You get access to all of that, right? So if ever I'm doing a concert or an event, you're going to know about that. You're also going to know about different programs like the Rockstar Power Speaker program there. So you can go to jamesbarbour.com. You can see it on the ticker down there, /newsletter. It's free. Just put in your email address and your name, and you'll be on my newsletter. Social media is always great. It's at James Barbour now, NOW. And the reason I call it that is because I like to live right now. I don't like to live yesterday. I like to think in futures, but the only way you can create the futures is to do them now. So jamesbarbour.com /newsletter or at James Barbour now on social media. And then, we can share all the other stuff with the speaker programs. All that stuff is available if you guys want to come in and have fun with our amazing group that Shantha's part of.
Yeah. Thank you, James.
Yeah.
When I started this program this show called Inspiring Life Journeys, I kind of linked it to my travel, because life is a journey where you travel down the road of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I like to weave in a little bit of travel into this, and I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. I know you've traveled all around the world.
Yeah.
What have been a couple of your favorite places that you've been to, and where would you like to go next?
Well, I'm calling you soon. So I love travel, right? I love it. So I was in the Highlands of Edinburgh. Well, not Edinburgh. I was in the Highlands of Scotland, and my family heritage on my father's side, actually my mother's as well. I remember I was driving, and Ted McGrath and I were over there. We were at the Edinburgh Theatre Festival, and we took a car service, and we were just driving through like all the Loch Lomond and that whole area. And we were coming back from where we had stopped for lunch, and there was these beautiful mountainsides. And I just said to the driver, "Wait, you need to stop. Can we stop here?" And I was just called and pulled. And he goes, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Stop." Right. So he pulled over, and I just started hiking up this trail. And there was something around the bend, and I was just like blowing out of my body going, "Oh my gosh, I'd been here in some other lifetime before." So the Highlands of Scotland, Dubai is unbelievable. I fell in love with Dubai. Great place for entrepreneurs. The aesthetic of Dubai was incredible. My wife and I went there for 10 days about a year ago. Absolutely incredible. We do love Hawaii. We have family in Hawaii, so we're down there a lot. The place that I want to go, two places. I want to go to Australia, which I've never been. I've always wanted to go. And I want to go to Africa. So those are the places I want to go. So Shantha, get to work.
Yeah. You listed a lot of my favorite places too. Africa is my top of the list that I'd go back in a heartbeat. But I didn't know you had some Scottish heritage, and Scotland is so
I did, yeah.
beautiful.
Look, this is my people. If I talk like that, it'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, Graves. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your just your life journey and how it's been inspired. And I'm sure it's going to inspire many, many of our listeners. So everyone, do get in touch with James. Subscribe to his newsletter. He's an awesome person, and he gives so many great tips, even just by following him on social media. There are such great nuggets that you can get from him just by following and being part of his life.
Oh, thank you, Shantha, for having me. It's truly, truly an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So till next time, thank you for joining us, and do go ahead and share, like, and subscribe and comment on what you've heard from James, and get into his world and reach out to him and be part of his newsletter. So until next time, that's bye from James and me, and we'll just wrap it up with our short exit outro that we have here.